Hey, good evening. This is Nicolina Nix, and you're here for another evening for Women, Wit, and Wine. Tonight's episode is it's called Surviving Our Children, and I know that most when they read this, they definitely thought it was surviving parenthood, and really the subject was really more about what we have as parents, when we're looking at something when we lose a child. One of the things is and I'm kind of distracted. It's said, when your parents die, you lose your past. And when your children die, you lose your future. In my intro online when I set this up was definitely something that I said that there's a number of names that people are given once they're left behind by the death of a loved one. If you're a wife, you're a widow. If you lose your husband, you're a widower. And if a child loses a parent, you become an orphan. Mm-hmm. So, but there's no word for the parent that loses your child, and that's a very emotional subject and hard to deal with. I do want to talk about tonight the two wines that I have. I have one called the Middle Sister, and I only picked that because we always talk about being the middle child. It's a little bit fitting because it is kind of it's a reference to children, and then the other one is a storyteller because with the loss of a child, we always have a story to tell. There's always a story to tell, whether it's about healing or the pain that we suffer. My guest here tonight is Patricia.
Hello.
So welcome. Thank you
for having me.
For coming. I had another guest that was coming, and unfortunately, she had a medical emergency and wasn't able to make it. But as a godsend, Patricia came to join us. So one of the things is I have two beautiful children. I do. Mm-hmm. I have a 33-year-old daughter and a 22-year-old daughter. But so the idea of losing my child would be devastating for me. Mm-hmm. And you yourself have lost a child.
I have. I have actually lost 3 children. The first 2 were pretty early in pregnancy. My son, Ezekiel, which was the last, I was pregnant with him, carried him with 18 to 20 weeks. Mm-hmm. Glug. And although, I didn't carry him to term and I didn't get to take him to kindergarten for the first time or, do all the little mommy things that you do when your child is born. Because I have 2 daughters myself, and 26 and 24, awesome young women. But when I look at my family photos, I always feel like something's missing, and it's my son. 20 weeks was enough to start feeling him move and thinking about the future, what kind of person he's going to be, and any time after I lost him, and that process was quite devastating. Mm-hmm. I have a negative RH factor.
Yeah.
My son had positive RH factor, and I did not have a RhoGAM shot, and my blood was attacking his, and so I was very, very, very sick in my first trimester, and I went into the doctor's office, and I was young. I feel bad now because I didn't ask enough questions. Mm-hmm. I didn't know enough about life, just what to expect.
Yeah.
With anything. And the doctor said that I needed to have a DNC.
Wow.
He did an ultrasound. I could still see my son's heartbeat. I don't know what the issue was, or if it was just the RH factor and that they weren't going to be able to save him and it was him or me. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went in, he had me wait 3 more weeks. I don't know what the purpose in that was.
Yeah.
There was a lot of unanswered questions. And I remember the day that I went in and had to have the DNC and the devastation. The doctor was cruel, and he made me watch as he performed the DNC, and it was very devastating. I had severe PTSD from that.
Well, I can imagine.
Watching that process was horrible. And then I cried that day. And when I got home, my son's father and I held each other and cried. Mm-hmm. We gave him a name, Ezekiel. And then we never talked about it again until 17 years later. And it took me 17 years to face it, deal with the loss, and move forward.
So do you think that that during this 17 years definitely was a cause for relationship issues,
I wouldn't say
strife in...
I wouldn't say relationship issues. I think issues more with my self-worth and, feeling like I was a failure as a mother. Mm-hmm. Because here I had these 2 beautiful, healthy daughters, but yet my son didn't make it.
Yeah.
And I felt I carried that guilt of I did something wrong, and it was torture. It was torment for me for years. And now, I can deal with the situation. I can understand it. I still have love for my son. I still feel a connection with my son. I feel like he's in a better place. Mm-hmm. I have very strong spiritual beliefs, and I think that those help me get through the hard times.
That's always a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's always a good thing. My other guest, who Lupita was supposed to be here, she lost her son in a car accident, and there was a possibility he could have lived had somebody stopped, but they hadn't, and dealing with it, and I think I met her a year after the loss, and now it's been 2 years, so I think it's hard. I mean, I watched my daughter have friends who have died, overdose, suicide. Mm-hmm. One young man got hit on a little moped.
Wow. And
was left to die. And I think about that. I mean, and I think about the pain of what a parent would go through. I mean, my daughter, when she was born, she was in fetal distress, and she had the cord wrapped around her neck twice. She was dying, mm-hmm. and so she was very tiny when she was born, and then it turned out that she had her soft spots had prematurely closed, so she had to have surgery. Mm-hmm. And I remember the feeling for me when we were sitting in the hospital, and they said, "Okay, we're going to disconnect the heart monitor," and I'm like just so lost because I'm hearing my baby cry and I can't hold her, and mm-hmm. and I remember it's funny now that I look back at it. Was that it flatlined, and mm-hmm. I freaked out. Uh-huh. I'm like, oh my God!
And it was because they unplugged the monitor?
Yeah, they unplugged, but mm-hmm. I even heard them say that, but I was like almost out of body mm-hmm. because I couldn't hold my daughter, and she was crying, and she was in pain, and it just was tearing me up inside, and I didn't know what to think, and I didn't know what to do, and then I remember that feeling. of loss, and that when we brought her home, because she was so tiny, that I was always checking her, make sure she's breathing, because she was only 5 pounds. So she was very tiny, and she was a full-term baby.
Wow.
And so, I kind of remember going through that, thinking, oh my, making sure she slept with me, because I was so afraid to let her sleep by herself, But then I was always afraid that I was going to roll over on her in a big bed. I didn't, but she survived. 22 years later, I still haven't killed her yet. But just to imagine having to go through that form of I can only imagine it not creating any form for any parent some PTSD.
Yeah.
Because it is a traumatic loss.
I have a girlfriend who just lost a baby, and I've been watching her. She's been trying to get pregnant for so long, and it's just been so devastating. Not having a child of her own, and wanting one, and begging and pleading with her higher power for a child.
Maybe that's not her purpose, though.
Yeah.
Maybe her purpose is to give someone who doesn't
have a mom.
Doesn't necessarily come from her body. Just because it doesn't come from your body does not mean that is not your child.
Absolutely.
Because I think as someone who wants to be a maternal or a paternal role, you definitely not. You're capable, and we don't think about that. It's almost like we take it for granted. I mean, if I were to go back and if I could go back in time and the whole pre-thing, I would have never wanted children. I never wanted children, but I also didn't believe in alternative forms of birth control then. And so I wouldn't trade my children.
Yeah.
But had I never had them, I wouldn't have missed them. And and I make jokes about not wanting to be a parent, but I love my daughter, and I am one of those moms. I would give anything for my daughter. And one of the things that I explained to her was that later on was she was always you're always in my business. You just want to be in my business all the time. It's like no, has nothing to do with it. And then she'd come home and she'd tell me these stories about how her friends would go to these raves and somebody would take some kind of ecstasy kind of thing, and then the other friends would freak out and just leave them there.
Yeah.
I just said, that's why I want to know where you are.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with wanting to check up on you.
Yeah.
But if something happens, I need to know the first place to look.
Yeah. I've gone through that with my youngest daughter as well. And it's hard for them to understand or to kind of get a grasp.
Yeah, it's not that I want to know where you are.
Yeah.
I want to know where to look. I want to know if you're supposed to be home at 11 and it comes to be midnight, I want to know the first place to drive.
Oh, my daughter and her friends, they're in Texas, would go to the lake all the time. And they'd get out on the boat and they'd all be drinking, and you're not supposed to drink and drive. I don't care if you're driving a boat or you're driving a car.
You're not supposed to drink and drive. You'll get a ticket. You'll get a DUI out there.
Yeah. And my fear was that I was going to get a phone call one day. I don't know how I would have handled it had anything ever happened. It would just be.
I think that's almost a fear of any parent.
Yes,
is that dreaded phone call.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my daughter. I remember my daughter, talking and just thinking about the times when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? And not that you want to prophesize that for your children. You definitely, there's always if I tell you to be home by 10 o'clock, and you're running late, well, that phone should be ringing before 10 o'clock, not at 10 o'clock. but before 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, and because I want to know. I mean, and you know, and I think I've gone through that dreaded, fateful call kind of thing every time the phone rings. You know, if I can't get a hold of my daughter, I mean, you know, if she has a boyfriend and, you know, I call her on the phone and she's arguing and she's panicking, and then all of a sudden the phone drops and it's just initial panic. It's like, God, did the guy run over her with a car? It's what goes through your head as a parent. I think that for anybody to think that it would be okay, and would be easy to deal with, I just couldn't imagine that. I mean, I have a tough enough time having a live child, let alone, you know, one that's no longer with me.
And I really have I think probably a different way of thinking about it for me that gives me comfort. It's not probably not a popular belief. Definitely not a traditional belief. But I still feel like my son is with me. Little things will happen around my home, and I just feel like that's him letting me know, hey, Mom, I'm here. And it wasn't until I started mourning and accepting the fact that he's gone, and there's nothing I could do, and I had to just come to a better place in my way of thinking to deal with it, and that's kind of where I found comfort.
Right.
And I think everybody finds a comfort in loss. Whether it doesn't matter what kind of loss it is. When you're dealing with loss, there's those stages that you have to go through. And I finally gotten to a place of acceptance that he's gone, and it's not my fault, and I'm not a bad mom, and I'm okay, and God loves me. He's not angry with me, and and I have this little belief system that my son is here. So take it for what it's worth. If it helps, great. If it doesn't, oh well. For me, it helps. So,
you know, and I know that. I mean, you know, I'm a very spiritual person. I'm not a highly religious person.
Yeah, me too.
But I am definitely spiritual in the respect of, I do believe that there is a thereafter. I do believe that things happen to us in our life to teach us something. You know, I had a friend once describe to me about, you know, this analogy of a broken heart. You imagine there's this hole, and so what you have to do is, I'm trying to get my daughter to bring the dog in. What you have to do with that hole is, you know, when something's taken away from us, when something's taken away from us, sorry, I had to let the dogs in. When something's taken away from us, you know, it's almost like this pie where something has to be cut out in order to make way for something better that's coming to you. That's the other dog. I have 3 dogs.
Oh.
No, excuse me. I have 1 dog. Amber has 2 dogs.
Okay.
So you kind of have to clear that out in order to make way for something else, to help you heal.
Yes.
Because that there's this part of you that we think it's a plan for us that may not be the plan for us. Because who knows? I mean, who knows as to what was the reason for this loss? You know, it's almost, if you think about it in a science fiction kind of method. Zeus isn't inside. the science fiction type of method that maybe this soul was prevented from coming into this world because it could be a what is that? The snowball effect.
Mm-hmm.
That there was something that could have possibly happened in this person's life. Maybe this child may have had a life-threatening disease, and maybe this is the time. By what happened, it was a preventative measure to take that away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, it's like I believe our soul is everlasting,
mm-hmm.
and I believe it goes in cycles. I believe that we are in several lives to learn lessons. Okay, and when we're out learning these lessons, we eventually become to the end of this cycle, and we become dormant, and we make a choice to go into the life that we live. If we choose a life of suffering, then that's the lesson that our soul needs to learn. And it doesn't mean that once we've learned it, that's the end of the lesson. It could be an ongoing lesson where we have to go back,
mm-hmm.
restart the cycle, and go back into this life, go back into this suffering, go back into this happiness, this gratitude. But so for me, when I kind of think of that, that's kind of how I can see, the loss of someone. In a moralistic thought pattern, it's not right. It's hard. It's devastating.
It is.
I mean, when we lose a relationship, we're devastated.
Mm-hmm. The loss of a child is so much deeper. It's a piece of you that is gone.
Right.
But it's not the end. That's something that I think that so many of us forget. It's not the end. And we are okay. And whatever emotion, whatever feeling you have, it's okay. It's okay to have that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be right where you're at.
Right. It's okay to hurt. I mean, and that's the whole thing. I think the things that is like a lot of people don't think.
I felt like I was pushing the table.
Oh no, it's a little.
Oh, okay.
You're okay. I think that we, as people, it's again, it's that always be kind to somebody because you don't know what
you don't know what they're going
walking.
through. Mm-hmm.
You don't know how they woke up that morning. You don't know. I don't know. The dog could have died this morning.
Mm-hmm.
We have to practice compassion, especially when you lose somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I read this article once about like relationships. Of how long should it take for you to get over a relationship, and really, this theory is that you take the relationship and you divide it in half. And that's about the healing time that you should require for a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Would the same principles apply to losing a child? I don't think so, because you can replace a relationship. You can't replace a child.
Yeah. It truly is a piece of you. And everybody is going to mourn and deal with that loss completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever way, I don't think that anybody can say that it's wrong. Unless you're hurting yourself or physically hurting yourself or somebody else, then I would say that's a problem. But in general, we all have to mourn in our own ways. It took me 17 years to start the mourning process, to be able to say Ezekiel's name without breaking down and just
So for
crying.
17 years, you were in the denial stage.
I was. No, I wouldn't say it was in the denial stage.
I wouldn't say that because it's very funny because I'm watching the TV show and it's like the stages of grief.
Mm-hmm.
First there's denial, then there's anger, and then there's I got to think about all those terms because, like I said, I was just kind of watching
Well, I was at an acceptance. I knew he was gone. He wasn't coming back. It was a deep sorrow. That's the best way that I can put it.
It's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance.
Yes.
So in the first 17 years, you went through all of those 4.
Over and over and over again.
Over and over again. So it was like a broken loop.
Yes.
A broken record.
It was.
Almost.
And it wasn't until I was emotionally, mentally, physically ready to get off that mountain and say, okay, I'm reclaiming my life. And although this is a horrible thing that happened, and I love my son, I don't feel like it's past. He's past. I know he's not with me physically, but I don't feel like he graduated before I did. Mm-hmm. That's all I can say. He graduated before I did. He got to be somewhere I want to be one day.
Right.
And he got to be there first. He didn't have to go through all of the heartache and, excuse me, I don't know if I can say this, all the bullshit.
Oh no,
Really?
the show. It's
Okay.
totally. The show totally has the explicit warning on it. So every time, because
yeah, and it was not. I'm glad that he didn't have to go through those things. That he was able to be in a place of comfort and love, and he was loved 100% of the time that he was within my body. Mm-hmm. And when he left my body, he was in a place where everything was okay.
Yeah.
And there is no pain, and there is no sorrow, and there is no mourning, and there is no sense of time. There is no sense of begrudging feelings. Mm-mm. There is no anger. And so I feel like I loved my son as long as I could, and then he was blessed to be somewhere where so many of us want to be. So if I think about it that way, I feel a lot better.
I understand that, and some people, when we talk about the loss of a loved one, period. Mm-hmm. I think the typical thing is they're in a better place, and I'm pretty sure that because we're still in those stages of anger, denial, bargaining. It's like, how the hell would you know?
Yeah.
How the hell would you know that they're in a better place?
Because there's one or two people in my life that I know. There is no way they can be in any place good. No, I'm just. Are we running out of time?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I have a grandfather who passed away, and he was not a nice man to his family. I was disowned from because I have biracial children. It was not okay, and I was dead to him, and my children were not his grandchildren or his great grandchildren. And so, when he died, for me, it was a time of rejoicing because now he can't hurt anybody in my family anymore.
Right.
And I cannot imagine him being in the same place as my son. But who knows?
But maybe
I don't know.
But maybe that was his life lesson. Maybe that's the life he chose.
Yeah.
And that's where I say, maybe that is the life that he chose. Mm-hmm. The experience that he chose.
Oh, well, everything that we live in life is a choice. If we decide to wake up in the morning and have a good attitude or a bad attitude, it starts from the moment you open your eyes. If you determine this is going to be a good day or a bad day.
Yeah.
And so, I just think that in life, we have choices that we can make our life better, or we can make our life miserable. And it's the same way with dealing with loss, grieving each day. I know it hurts. Sometimes you don't want to get out of bed. Allow yourself that time, but know that there's got to be an end. It can't stay that way forever. And
no, that's true. That's true. I'm sorry.
No,
somebody's telling me that the sound wasn't on. So,
I
mean, we're recording, and it's fine. It looks like my cat unplugged it. So, Mary, can you hear me now?
Did she hear any of it?
She said we were live, and then it was she couldn't hear anything. So, but it looked like the plug got knocked off. But it'll still record and it'll upload. So,
I wonder if there's anybody listening that has any questions.
Yeah, right? I mean, definitely. I mean,
is anybody listening that has had similar experiences that we could share?
I'm kind of hoping so. Let's see. I was kind of trying to see how many people
are watching, listening.
Yeah, it kind of tells me. Not still gray. Not some yellow showing up. Okay. So.
We have some audio difficulties, huh?
We are having some audio difficulties. I think we should be okay now. Because I got the sound on. So, but I did have somebody tell me that we were going down a little bit. So I mean, and in some instances, it's kind of it is hard. It's I think of it in terms of what I mean, to think that you have somebody for 22 years in your life,
mm-hmm.
and then they're taken away.
Mm-hmm.
So I can always start this over. Open episode page. Let's see this. So go ahead and talk. I want to turn this on for a second.
I think that I would, if anybody out there is listening and they're struggling, they're having a hard time with the loss of a child. There's nothing that I'm going to say. There's nothing that Nicolina's going to say. There's nothing that anybody can tell you that's going to take that pain away.
My recommendation is always to talk to your family.
Talk to the people who are closest to you, yes, absolutely. I'm just going to say, there's nothing that...
So, yeah, I just kind of turned it on and I can hear it. So obviously it's working. Let me check this right now. But
allow yourself to feel whatever it is that you're feeling.
Yeah,
Embrace yourself. Spend some time pampering yourself. There's absolutely nothing wrong with giving to yourself. And we cannot, as women and as mothers, we cannot be good to anybody else until we're good to ourselves first.
Exactly.
And if you need time to cry, if you need time to scream or
reach out to somebody.
Yes.
Always reach out. Always definitely reach out.
Don't ever think that you're alone, because you're not.
You're not.
Mm-mm.
When I think about this, I know that, my friend that I was
that was coming
was supposed to join us. I listened to her go through the stress of losing her son,
Mm-hmm.
and although I wasn't really that close with her at the time when I started working with her, definitely, it's hard. I don't know. It's hard. It was hard watching her. I mean, it was hard thinking about the stuff that she had to go through as a parent,
mm-hmm.
To lose something, to lose somebody. So I know that watching her struggle. I mean, and definitely, I think that something like this definitely is something that can cause us to. We lose somebody. We lose somebody in our life. We lose somebody that has been such an intricate part of our life, that they are. You just took a picture of me. Good thing I wasn't really picking my nose. So, so really, if the key is definitely, I would love to talk or have somebody come in and talk about us and talk about, us and, their experiences with the loss of a child. I kind of feel like I'm babbling a little bit because, anytime I have technical difficulties, I kind of feel a little inept, even if I'm really not. But I just want to say that, if you lose a child, reach out. There's so many resources out there to talk to
a pastor, a counselor. Grievance counselors are awesome. They're a wonderful resource. Talk to your spouse if you have a spouse.
Right.
Your mother.
Absolutely.
Moms, we're great for listening to our kids. We love our children. And
we do. We love our children, absolutely.
We want to see our kids thrive. And so if your mom is still here, I know she'd love to hear from you. Talk to her.
Hey, moms, I think that if you don't really talk to your kids either, definitely reach out to them, talk to them. They're very amazing people, and no matter what they're going through, sometimes maybe it's just a matter of hearing that you still think about them, you still care about them. Life doesn't have to be perfect,
and that we're human.
We're human. We make mistakes,
and we have feelings and emotions. I'm not June Cleaver.
Oh, but I am. I'm Donna Reed. Sorry. I want to be the hot mom.
So I don't know. I'm kind of a hippie, so I don't think there's a TV mom out there.
You could have been close to me, Mrs. Partridge. They were kind of hippie-ish, a little bit band thing.
Band thing.
The whole band thing. They dress like hippies.
Well, it was the 70s. That's kind of the way to dress.
The 70s. So, with grief, when I lost my father in 2000, and I grieve him. I think I still grieve him, and again, that's definitely not a loss of a child. It doesn't equate. I think it can be just as painful, but it does not necessarily equate because to something that came from your body.
Yes.
As a mother, I can't say that as a man, unless of course he's pregnant, and then that's totally different, and we're not judging. But something that came from your body that it's like I made from scratch.
Well, it's a little more than scratching, but okay.
Okay, I scratched an itch. How's that? I scratched an itch. And raising a child, again, my daughter's 22, my youngest is 22, and I think about, any day it can happen to anybody. It's not like this.
Tomorrow's not guaranteed.
Morning, somebody woke up and said, it's not like God woke up and said, okay, I'm a little bit tired of Amber. I'm taking her. Mm-hmm. Sorry, sucks to be you. But we can. It's every day. Every day you have to live it like it's your last, and especially with our children, you never know the moment when something can be taken away from you. Tell them you love them. Tell them you appreciate them. Tell them you're proud of them.
Yeah. It goes so far in a young person's mind to hear their parent say, I love you, I'm proud of you, and never missing that opportunity when we have it to really show the people that we love how much we love them, especially our children.
My daughter just rolls her eyes at me, you know.
It's okay.
It's okay.
She can roll her eyes.
Like, really, literally, she rolls some eyes at me. No, I'm joking. No.
I'm sorry, those are ice cubes.
Oh, those are ice cubes. That's not what those were. They sure did have blue eyes. But I definitely, you know, I'm glad that you got to come and sit with me. We still have like 20 minutes, so it's not like
cool.
We're wrapping up, because this is like an hour-long show. And I definitely am glad. You know, it's very interesting that sometimes, you know, sometimes the universe puts people in your path because there's a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And for me today, definitely when I got your email, and you know, I get a lot of people that say, you know, hey, where's it at? And it's just like, well, it's actually live online.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually how I reply to most people. And I just knew that when you said you wanted to come, I thought, okay, there's a reason,
mm-hmm.
and she needs to be here. And so I gave you the address, and I'm glad you came, because it, you know.
And I really hope that somebody is listening and can take something away. I would hope that no woman would allow herself to mourn 17 plus years when it doesn't have to be that long.
It doesn't have to be that long.
And it's okay. There's nothing wrong if you're ready and able to release and allow your child to be in a better place without you being in agony.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly do understand that agony. I will never get to see my son's first softball game or soccer, or, you know, I never got to take him to school for the first time, you know, kindergarten, that first day. Those things, those firsts will never happen. I will never be a grandmother from his children. I will, you know, and his father and I, we still communicate, we still talk, and we both have very similar feelings that he's still here with us. He's still very much a part of our lives.
I believe there's definitely this essence of what was created, you know, as this child was created. There's this essence, and I think that essence always remains with us. I mean, I can probably say I still feel the essence of my father every once in a while, and then I just kind of just, and it's just that moment when you just think that everything is good and blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden this thought pops in your head, or this sign mm-hmm. comes to you that mm-hmm. says, "Hey, I'm still here. Mm-hmm. I'm still watching over you. I still mm-hmm. love you." Because here's this spirit, this mm-hmm. soul. It's a soul, and it's and we connect with so many different people in that aspect, that we have these karmic threads.
Yes.
And they will consistently remain in our lives until we're ready to release those threads. Mm-hmm. You know, we have a karmic thread. You know, I have a bench that sits behind you that was bought from me 22 years ago. And
beautiful.
It's for my ex-husband. And there's always going to be this karmic thread for mm-hmm. my ex-husband. Mm-hmm. One day I'll get rid of it. Mm-hmm. But I still love the bench.
Yeah.
And that's how we have to think about life, and that's how we think about our children mm-hmm. and our family members that we've lost, that are no longer here. Mm-hmm. I will always love my father.
Yeah.
Was he a perfect man? No. Mm-hmm. You know, I'll always love my daughter. Is she a perfect child? No, she's the spawn of me. Just kidding. Just kidding. No, I mean, and I'm very proud of her. I mean, is she living her life the way I believe that she should have lived it? No. But that's her path, and it's her journey.
I think that's one of the greatest gifts a parent can give their kid. This is my opinion, of course. I raised my daughters, and I told them, I love you. I'm not going to always agree with your choices. But I know that I raised you well. I raised you right. I raised you with morals and values. Mm-hmm. And you may do things that are contradictory to the way that I raised you, but I know that my path isn't your path.
Right.
And I know that the things that you do have to be what's right for you, not necessarily what's right for me. And as long as you're happy and you're healthy and you're safe, there's nothing more that I can ask for. I would hope that they would have a deep connection. Of course, I'm a mom. I'm not religious like you, but I am spiritual. And I want my children to have that connection with their higher power.
Oh, I'm spiritual. And mine is definitely the universe, the big kahuna, the mother lode. I mean, it's really whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make me less of a good person because I don't necessarily call my higher power God.
Or Jesus.
Or Jesus.
Or Muhammad, or Allah, or Buddha.
It has no value of the terminology. What has value is how do I present myself to the world, and how do I carry myself?
Yes.
If I'm always, the Wiccan creed is best described: merry meet, merry part, harming nothing and no one along the way. And we live in perfect love and perfect trust. So with that in itself is that if you're out, I best describe it that there's a consequence to every action.
Yes.
And consequences, it's going to be a good consequence. It's going to be a bad consequence. If you know it's a bad consequence, then
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
it's not the path you should take. And that's all you got to ask. What is the end result of this? What is going to be the end result of this action? And if it's going to leave you unhappy, you don't do it. I mean, so as a parent, I think that that's the best that we can strive. My daughter doesn't drink and drive.
Yeah.
She unfortunately learned the hard way from me. She doesn't do drugs. She's one of the few people. Mary said that her audio's back, but she's afraid to try, and that's why she was trying when she lost the audio first time.
Oh.
So, but you never know. And I lost my train of thought. Sorry. I do have ADD, so forgive me.
Who of us don't?
Look, a squirrel, chicken, shiny. So definitely, and if you have questions or comments, you can definitely make comments online. Even after the show is done, it will post. And share your story, share your experience. I would never, ever imagine, I can't imagine. Maybe that's the wrong word. I can't imagine what somebody's going through, but I will never know what somebody who has lost their child is going through. And the measures that we take to heal and get through something. But if it's definitely something that's causing you to drown out your sorrow by maybe alcohol or destructive behavior, it's definitely a reason to seek out help and seek out your family, friends. Keep yourself busy, and sometimes that's the best cure for some people. Is to stay busy, is to reach out, and sometimes it's about talking. I would tell people, I would say something out loud, and then they'd go, "What?" And I'd go, "I'm just releasing it to the universe."
I think that one of the greatest gifts that God, my higher power, has given me, is my best girlfriend, Meg.
That's quick.
And we have spent hours and hours and hours sitting on her bed, talking and crying, and just being an encouragement to each other, because she has also lost some children along the way. And so when I was going through the process of grieving, really grieving. And this was, I'm going to say 6 years now, 6 years ago that I started the grieving process, because he'd be 23 this month is when I lost him, 23 years ago. So, having that friend who has been through it, understands it, gets it, has mourned and released, going to somebody else who has been through something similar is just amazing. It's an awesome support, and truly a gift, a blessing. That I hope every woman has, that one special girlfriend that they can go to and say whatever.
Right?
You're a bitch today.
You're a bitch today. I do have that friend. I love her very much, Linda.
And you can be okay with it, because you know where their heart is, and so sometimes we need to hear from our best girlfriends or our best friend, you know what, it's time to pick up your big girl panties and let's move forward.
Pull those britches up and let's move on. And I understand that. I mean, I definitely, just, when I went through the breakup kind of thing, and again, with the OCD, it just takes a little longer for me to process.
Mm-hmm.
But, a good friend is still going to love you no matter what,
mm-hmm.
and still be there for you.
Mm-hmm. Even when you're wearing those khaki plaid pants.
That's right. I wasn't sure if there was a family of clowns in there. You sure you want to wear that again?
Going golfing, aren't you?
Totally do that. I am one of those people that's like, what the heck is that? Did you get dressed in the dark today? Actually, usually that's my response, that when I look at myself and I think, okay, I admit I got dressed in the dark today. You're lucky I came with any clothes on.
Yeah.
But definitely, we got about 8 minutes left, and, do you want to say anything in closing?
For those that are hurting, that are struggling, I just want you to know that tonight I'll be lifting up words of praise for you and encouragement, and just sending you tons of happy, positive energy. And you are loved, and you're going to get through this. Just hang in there. Don't give up.
It's one day at a time. That's really all we can do is, the saying of being emotionally available is a one day at a time thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even as parents, becoming emotionally available. The thing we have to remember is that, although you might have lost a child, you've got to remember there's still other children that need your love and your attention.
Absolutely.
Life doesn't end because we've lost one when we have others. So take the time, take that moment of telling your children how much you love them. I mean, and there's a lot of parents out there that are single parents, and but then there's a majority of parents that have had several children, and if you lose a child for whatever reason, know that there are still other people in your life that still need that same love.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that can definitely be a healing point for you is just to give unconditionally, or to get back into the routine of knowing that there's other people that need you. They need you. I mean, I know that there were times when I had cancer, I remember being in this room, and because this is where I lived, this was my living area here, and being on the sofa and just being so inebriated, because all I did, I drank that entire year because I was just so overwhelmed I couldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I was out of work for almost a year, and in that year, I basically let my depression abandon my daughter in that year.
Mm-hmm.
I was a barely functioning parent, and I had to come to a point to where I had to be able to function again. I mean, I couldn't just come in here and lay on the couch and just drink myself into a stupor because I was suffering from depression. But because I had a young child, I think she was 7 or 8, and it was unfair. And I'm just grateful that she still loves me, and she still thinks I'm a good person on most days. I think that she's an amazing person, and I know that she definitely was my rock through some hard times. And had I ever lost my rock, I would have lost my world.
Mm-hmm.
So I can imagine. I can't say that I feel it, but I can imagine the devastation a parent would go through.
It's tough, but you make it through, and it does get easier.
So, well, I'm grateful that you're here.
I am very glad that I came. I had a lot of fun.
I'm glad. So, I mean, and definitely, I'd love to have you back.
I'd love to come back.
I plan out my topics at least a month in advance. I'm actually right now in the middle of planning May's, the end of April, May's. And my next show is actually called Human Nature. Oops, I didn't mean to talk about sex. It's definitely the lyrics from a Madonna song, but, my guest is going to be a coworker of mine, Diana, and her friend, Sammy, and we're going to talk about, that.
Bob.
Taboo.
Bob. That wonderful, wonderful friend that every single female needs to have. The battery-operated boyfriend.
Well, to each their own, but, just because I own stock, you got to judge me. So we'll be here, and then the next week, and the next week after that, I definitely have another show lined up. It's called Love, Swinging, and Love, Polyamory, and Swinging. So, and it's definitely to talk about the different options that people live in a lifestyle. I may actually even change the name called monogamy. Monogamy, polyamory, and swinging. That's probably what I'm going to do.
Celibacy, monogamy.
Oh yeah, I am. I would probably say I'm fairly celibate. So I've been celibate for a year and a half. So
2 years for me.
Oh bloody hell! Stock and Duracell. Thank God for the dollar store. So, but I hope that you'll join us again. And I just want to thank my amazing guest here, Jersa Callan. I'm so glad she got to join me. She was definitely a godsend for me today, and I hope you'll come back, and definitely we'll find something else to talk about.
All right, sounds good.
I have so much. I love doing this show. I love talking to people, and when I don't have audio problems, it goes really well. But thanks for listening. This is Nicolina Nix, and you're listening to Women, Wit, and Wine, and I hope you have a great night. And we will see you next week. Bye.